gonna talk about One of Us is Lying by uh her name is slipping me, McManus. What's the first? Karen?
Yeah, Karen.
Karen
Like,
McManus.
think of Will and Grace.
And so this story follows 5 teens who are in high school, and they're your basic stereotype of teens. You have your jock, you have the beauty, you have the brains, you have the one that's always in trouble with the law, and you have the outcast. Simon, who is the outcast, run this app called About That or All That, I think. And it's basically this gossip app that has all the gossip and all of these about the students that go to the school, and it's really some hard gossip, like mess with you, mess with your head type of gossip. And so they're all in detention. Well, Simon dies while he's in detention, and automatically everybody thinks that it's either one of the 4 students that was in there because it was just them in there. And what else is ironic is that the next day, Simon was supposed to post some more gossip about each of those students and the secrets that they have. And so the story takes off from there.
So I'm not gonna lie. Before I usually with books for this group, I try not to read reviews before I watch it, just because I want to come into the book fresh, shall we say? But on this one, I did. I was putting on my Goodreads, and the very first one happened to mention something about the Breakfast Club, which is a solid movie if you were a 90s or 80s baby. John Hughes at his finest. What can I say? And so I start reading the review, and they're basically talking about how the book was attempting to be Breakfast Club and massively failing at it. And on some level, I can't disagree with that thought. Like, I went into the book going, okay, even if it fails at being the Breakfast Club, I'm still gonna love it because Breakfast Club is awesome, and even if crappy Breakfast Club is still gonna be awesome. And no.
I know, like I read that review as well, and I like the fact that it was loosely based off the Breakfast Club, but it had that twist to it as well. And when I went into it, I wasn't thinking that it had other subtopics in it because this book covers depression, mental health, suicide,
Gossip,
pressure,
teenagers.
gossip, bullying, and all of that stuff. But when you first go into the story, you just, that he died and you're trying to figure out how it happened. And, you're going to automatically think that is one of the 4 students because he was supposed to post some mean stuff about those students. But there's just so much more stuff that's in it. And I loved reading this story. I think out of all the books we read this year, this is probably my favorite one. And I like the different turns and how you were able to get into each character's mind because it's written from alternate point of views. And I think that was a good thing if versus, you're reading it the regular way because you get to experience those emotions that the teens are going through and get inside their head and how they're handling these versus if you're reading just, the basic way. You don't really connect with the characters like that. And that's one of the things that I liked how the story was written.
I think for this story, the different point of views definitely was a good thing. This is one of those weird books where I don't think it was a great point of view.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I usually like changes in point of view when it's a well-written book or if it's a good book or if it's done well, however you want to look at it. And I don't think this was a great book. It might be on the verge of being a good book, but I personally was not that into it. That said, the changes in perspective and character was well done. And I mean, it was kind of cool to see how they were going through everything. But I mean, to me, it wasn't like something that you got suckered into as a mystery. Like, I think it wanted to be a mystery, but then you get more suckered into the teenage drama angst bit rather than the actual mystery of everything. And that kind of drove me a little nuts. And then you're getting into this teenage drama angst, and it's wanting to be the Breakfast Club fun version of that, but you're getting more of the angsty version of it. Maybe Pretty in Pink would be a good John Hughes analogy without fully being pretty in pink.
And see, I don't know, I probably have to disagree with that one because even though it started out as a mystery, all of those teens had things in common. And we you find out that Simon basically he was depressed. And each of those teens, basically how they got into detention, they were caught with cell phones in their bag and they went to detention. And so automatically when the police found out about that, they're like, okay, we're being framed. But I like the fact that how it went from just being it went deeper into it. It went from being just a mystery, and then you finding out other little plot points as to why they were all in detention, why all of them was targeted, because at some point they all were friends before they got into high school. And so you're trying to figure out who killed him and why they killed him. And along this journey that you're trying to figure out, you also discover other secrets that those teens are hiding as well. And all those secrets kind of pull into the focal point of Simon. It's like it all drew back to him as well. And it brought out the characters. It brought out the things that they wanted to come out, that they wanted to have out, but just didn't have the courage enough to do it, or were just simply afraid to do it.
So, question for you.
Okay.
How do you think it dealt with high school? Was it a realistic view of high school or not?
I felt like it was in a sense because even I mean, of course, like with the app, but it's no different than Facebook or Instagram or Twitter. You can post gossip and mess and all that stuff on there. And the one of the like the beauty, she was basically cheating, not the beauty, the brains was cheating in school. The jock, he was accused of at first he was accused of taking steroids, but you come to find out later that he was gay. And then you have the one that's always in trouble with the law. It's just everything that they said about the teens. I feel like that is relevant to how some of the teens are now. It may not be as portrayed exactly like that, but I feel like it could be related, especially with the bullying and the gossiping and the rumors and all that stuff that is going on.
Yeah, like social media is the worst. I mean, I think it's made bullying a lot worse than it used to be, like when back in our day in high school, because clearly we're both 80 and we can use that phrase now. Um, like social media is the worst because I mean, people, there are no repercussions for it. I mean, we're still trying to catch up with bullying laws in relation to online type of stuff. And I mean, a lot of people just because their name, faceless on there and, there's no instant, you know, they did this, this is what happened. Say so much crap about everybody. I mean, like if you look at my Facebook, it's, articles I thought were interesting and wanted to share with people. Pictures of Luke the Boxer and Doug the Pug. Book stuff. Like I'm trying to kind of make it like a happy, safe place where just if you want to discuss stuff, fine, come over and discuss it. If you're gonna be shitty with people, you're out. I mean, I've deleted other people's comments. I've deleted entire threads just because of just sheer shittiness that people do. Because I'm not putting up with it on my Facebook. But I mean, you see that kind of stuff just running rampant. I don't think of Facebook, Twitter, that stuff as the real world. I mean, it's really, I mean, and so it's probably as real as MTV's The Real World actually is, just utterly fake.
Yeah, it's just what one of the things that went through my mind was the fact that even though they had all of these, these secrets that went along with them, I felt like when they finally was free of those secrets, they were able to breathe and live life because eventually all that stuff is going to come out anyway. They just didn't know that's going to come out, that way. And that's one of the things that I liked about the story. I really love how it was just written and how it did flow with it.
One of the things that you guys missed before everything was Ericka and I discussing other things that um this book kind of reminded me of us of. Obviously, The Breakfast Club went through both of our heads because, like I said, I mentioned I saw the review before I read, not on purpose. And as I'm reading, like I completely got it. And then Ericka saw the review. I think you said after you read it,
Mhm.
and you know she didn't get the Breakfast Club stuff until she saw it mentioned, and then I was like, oh my god, um, that came up. How to Get Away with Murder got mentioned as well by Ericka, and that seemed to fit too.
Yeah, because it boils down to all the secrets. I mean, this book is full of secrets and all of that stuff. And like I said, as far as like, the mental health, it's because, the kids, all of this stuff is just piling on them after one thing. The first thing they're getting accused of murder. And then there's each couple of pages, other things is coming up about their life, and then like other secrets that they had, and then they're dealing with personal things at home, and then everything is just crashing down on them, and it messes with your mind big time, and they're trying to cope with it at the same time. And so, with the pressure, like one of the girls who is the brain, her parents went to Yale, and she's trying so hard to be pleasing to them and prove to them that she's good, she's smart, and that she can go to Yale too, and she's going to do whatever she can to pass, to make good grades and go to Yale. So she resorts to cheating, and it's just a lot of things in this book that it's a lot to talk about, you know, with this book.
No, no, totally. And one thing that, since you're talking about the mental health stuff, that I would like to make mention, I'm making mention of it a lot earlier than we have in other mental health stuff's getting mentioned earlier in this discussion than it has been in other um, book clubs. But one of the things that have passed out in um, my book club that I run at the library is the number for the suicide prevention hotline. Um, and that I've actually looked up that number. No judgment if anybody needs to use this number. But if you guys need it, it's 1-800-273-8255. And, if anybody, we can always repost it later if needed. Also, something that I found out recently is that September is National Suicide Prevention Month.
Yeah, and the reason why suicide is being mentioned is because later on in the story, you're being thrown every which way because you don't know who killed Simon. And once the team started investigating, putting clues together, because the day that he died, when he was in detention, there was a car accident, and then you come to find out that the car accident was staged. And so, when the one of the teens had went to question the person that was driving the car, because after the accident there was like only one auto shop there, and so they dug around, they found out who that person was, and they went to the school. And when the person, originally they thought that it was, what's his name, Jake or Jay, it was Addison, who was the beauty queen, her boyfriend.
Oh,
but
let me.
but the person that,
Um,
really did it was Simon. And after you find out that it was Simon, you find out that he was depressed, and you find out that basically he hated his life. And when I mentioned that all of the teens that was in the room each had different reasons as to why he wanted to get back at them even after death, was because of, they always made him feel like an outcast. He had a crush on one of the girls in there, and she didn't return all of that. And some of this stuff may seem like it's not a big deal, but to some people it probably is. And of course he went through things at home, and it was just a lot. But at the same time, you never would have figured it out that he was depressed or he had suicidal thoughts, because even though he was an outcast, he was this big vocal person. And of course, there was a lot of people who probably did have motive to kill him because, like I said, he had this big gossip app. And one of the things that the teens mentioned when they did, whenever the gossip was posted, was that they would say, "Well, it's true." Well, that's easy to say if you're not being mentioned in there. And so,
Okay, I think I have names now. I believe that Nate is one of them.
yeah, Nate is the criminal. Addison is the beauty queen.
No,
Um,
I think Keely's the beauty queen
Keely was
because she's the one.
Cooper's girlfriend.
Oh, okay. Her
Yeah,
mom is.
Addison is the beauty queen.
No.
Bron
It's not Addison. You've got Cooper, Nate, Adelaide, and Bronwyn.
okay, yeah. And Bronwyn is was the brains. Cooper was the jock. Um, who else am I
Nate.
missing? I think Nate was the one that always got in trouble with the law. And and Nate was the one that it was all pinpointed on because all the other ones were kind of well off. And because his father was an alcoholic and his mom wasn't in the picture, and because he was dealing drugs and he was always getting in trouble, it was easy to pinpoint him as the person who um
By the way, I think I
to
know where you
be
got.
looked out for.
I think I know where you got the name Jake from. I think Jake is Adelaide's boyfriend.
Right. And then because in the later on in the story, there's still being posts being sent to the police department and being threatened to be published well after Simon's dead. So of course, there's an accomplice that he's just still publishing these posts. And you come to find out that it is Jake, and he's the one that's still tormenting the teens and threatening them and everything.
So remember, everybody, be nice to the person next to you because you do not know what they are going through.
You don't, and that's a sad thing. People don't take in consideration what this person is going through, especially like if you work in the public as well. And a simple, smile, or it's a simple gesture can make their day. And you never know what somebody's going through. And a lot of times when teens are in school and they say I'm stressed out, and adults are like, "Oh, you're a kid, you don't know anything about that," and all this other stuff. That's a cop out because they do go through things. It may not be as monumental as some, but they still go through things.
Well, it's like I was talking to somebody recently, and just like perceptions of everybody is different as well. I was talking to somebody, and I was talking to somebody about the perceptions because one of the things that I read a while back was an article that said your perception of yourself is going to be different than the people around you's perceptions of you. That said, everybody's perception of you is also going to be different. So, how, say, Ericka sees me is different than how our former co-host, Julie, who we love, how Ericka sees me would probably be different than how, say, Julie sees me. And how both of them see me would be different than how I see myself. So I will say this: it was interesting to see how their perceptions of each other was different, as well as their perceptions of themselves.
And I can see that. You can see that a lot with the characters because they have this internal conflict and they see themselves one way, but the other characters see them as, it's just they don't realize how much they needed each other until it came to a point where they needed each other. And it came under unfortunate circumstances, but they needed each other. And I felt like, if they were real people, they would be like this unbreakable group, because they have a bond that I feel like can't really be broken because they've been through so much with each other and they're like each other's support because I feel like they got through that with each other. When one was down, the other one kept supporting them and trying to lift them up. Even when Nate got accused and went to jail, they stopped at nothing to try and defend him and figure out what was going on and things. So
But yeah, I think this is probably the first book that I gotta dig that nugget out for. But I don't know. There's just other stuff that I've read or watched that I've just liked better. Like I felt like succeeded more at doing what I was trying to do. Like, I mean, I know Breakfast Club keeps getting mentioned. This book really wants to be a John Hughes movie, like so badly, like Ferris Bueller, Pretty in Pink, Breakfast and Club. It really is just dying for the John Hughes treatment. It is falling short. It's like watching Psycho, because I mentioned this one because they actually remade Psycho. It was the exact same movie, just with a different cast and a different director, and it was awful. Just so awful. I don't know how it was so bad because it had Viggo Mortensen in it and Julianne Moore and William H. Macy and like you see this cast list and it's just Vince Vaughn was in it as Norman Bates and it just was so fantastically cast. But the remake was just such an awful movie. And you can sit there and say that because it's not uh Alfred Hitchcock. Like it doesn't have the Alfred Hitchcock touch. Like he was very pitch perfect when he made Psycho or The Birds. You sit there and you watch those movies and you're not necessarily terrified, but it's messed with your head and you walk away from Hitchcock movies knowing it's messed with your head. Like I'm not afraid of birds, but after watching The Birds, I will never own one. Ever. And to me, One of Us is Lying is kind of like watching a remake of a John Hughes movie without including John Hughes. It's the same kind of thing. It's got the twists, it's got an element of fun. You're kind of seeing the different parts, and it's kind of making you feel nostalgic for whatever time period, high school, the 80s, a life without social media, something. But it's not quite hitting the points. And after all of this rambling, I'm sure Ericka and I will probably be providing you guys a list, especially since this was one of the things that we've been really big with this year is providing you guys lists of other things to read and watch that kind of go along with what we're discussing that you may either like better or just might also be interested in because we've read the thing.
yeah, like I said, when I read it, but I wasn't thinking about the Breakfast Club until I saw that review. But I feel like you see that now after I read it, I can see the comparison of it. But I see it at the very beginning. And after he died, when it took a totally different turn, I don't see it anymore. I see more of you want to compare it to a TV show or movie, How to Get Away with Murder. But I just felt like I don't know. I don't see it as trying to replicate the Breakfast Club. I just see it as probably taking maybe just a little bit of the idea and putting a mystery twist onto it because it does take a totally different turn with the other different subtopics as mentioned in the book as well. I don't think they did that in maybe about pressure. I don't think it was bullying. I've only seen it the Breakfast Club one time, so I don't really it's a long time ago, so I don't really know. But I feel like it took a totally different turn than the movie. So I didn't see that while reading it. Well, of course I didn't see while reading because I didn't see the comments after. But now thinking back on it, I don't see that except for at the very beginning about the detention and the different types of students that was in there. But after he died, I didn't. It's not there anymore for me. So
Yeah, I mean, I probably like that review in some ways probably messed me up for this book because, you know, like I could see the Breakfast Club strain through the whole thing. So I mean, realistically, if you look at the back of the book, I mean, the front gives you this nice visual with no faces. No, it's not the back, it's the inside cover. So if you go to the inside cover, not the back, you literally get Bronwyn, the brain is yellowbound and never breaks a rule. Okay, that's totally Anthony Michael Hall's character in Breakfast Club. Addie, the beauty is the picture perfect homecoming princess. That would be oh god, I can't think of her name. But the redhead. Yes, Molly Ringwald, thank you. There's even a group out now called the Molly Ringwalds that just do all sorts of songs from the 80s that were popular. I heard they're coming to Arkansas soon. You may or may not be seeing me for a while. Then you have Nate, the criminal, is already on probation for dealing. That would be Judd Nelson's character in Breakfast Club. Cooper, the athlete, is the all-star baseball pitcher. That'd be Emilio Estevez, only that character's not gay in the movie. It was the 80s. People weren't fully out then. And then you have Ann Simon, the outcast, is the creator of Bayview Heights Notorious Gossip app. And there we get to oh god, I forget her name too. I want to say Mare Windaham's. No, it wasn't Mare Windaham. But that's the third girl, the second girl from Breakfast Club. And she was totally an outcast too. And again, without the gossip app because it was the 80s and apps weren't a thing. Like they weren't a glimmer in anybody's eye in the 80s.
I think if you wouldn't have read the comment, you'd probably think differently. I think so. Because I feel like since you read that review or the comment, I feel like you went through the whole book thinking that now. Like you went through the whole.
I think I did. But here's the thing. Like I know I went through the whole book thinking that after reading the comment, and I think you're right on some level. But like having read it, I could, like I said, see the strain of it through the entire book. Like, okay, I kind of see you trying to be John Hughes without actually being John Hughes.
Yeah, and so that's like the good and the bad of reading reviews. Before you read a book, it's good to read it to figure out if that's something you're interested in. But at the same time, if you read a comment or a review like that, then and you get the book, you're gonna be comparing it. Okay, yeah, this person was right. Oh, I see this. Oh, I'm not interested anymore in
Ali Sheedy. It was Ali Sheedy. Oh my god, sorry. I looked it up. Like the Brat Pack in the 80s had like 15 members. Like, and they all were in everybody's movies. By the way, I'm totally a Brat Pack kid. They were great. I love them. Yes, I was born in 87, so I missed all the Brat Pack stuff. But I watched it on TBS in the 90s when TBS actually did really cool stuff. But yeah, can you tell I miss the 90s sometimes?
I see.
But yeah, I mean, like, that's the kind of stuff I was watching, like, back then. That and Tim Burton, because TBS showed a lot of great stuff after, like, 8 or 6, and I would be watching it in my room, like, because my parents gave me a TV at one point, and so I'm watching up there, and it was great. And Rat Pack is always better than the Brat Pack, but they are very different. Not to be confused with the modern day Frat Pack, which is Vince Vaughn and his friends.
But yeah, this is what I think. I think this is a book that you probably want to stay away from the reviews with, because you can go in with different. You can go into it comparing it with a lot of things. I feel like the synopsis is just right on point about what the story is about. It tells you that the students, and it tells you what happened, and then
that inside cover synopsis is great. Like if you just pick up the book and read the inside cover, spot on. Yeah, like this is one of those times where, you know, I've read reviews before going through the book, and I try to like typically not for this group. This is one of, because like I said, I'm trying to read for this group and refresh and have my own opinion. When I'm reading for myself, I try to just like if I read it, I'm like, let's see how true this is. Yeah, that review probably just totally killed me for this book. But like I said, I see what they're saying as well. Like, it might have killed me, but I don't disagree with the thought, unfortunately.
Okay, so was it did you kind of figure out who it was that before we found out that Simon killed himself? Oh, and I don't think we mentioned how he died. He was allergic to peanut he had a peanut allergy, and somehow he lost his water bottle, I believe, and he went to the sink to get some water because I think they had to teach in the lab. And he lined the cup with peanut butter oil or something like that, and he drank it, and that's how he died. And so they took his EpiPen out of his bag, and also the nurse's office, whoever he was working with, took all of the EpiPens out of the nurse's offices too. But did you were you able to catch on as to who did you think was the one that had killed him before you found out about Simon, or did you when you found out that it was Jake was the accomplice? Did you figure out it was him or?
No, I actually didn't figure out it was him. Here's the thing. I figured it was nobody in the room. Like, I just kind of went into it just assuming that it was not Adelaide or Bronwyn or Nate or Cooper. And as I read, that kind of became justified and solid. Um, on the flip side of that, though, I didn't think it was suicide, and I didn't think it was an accomplice type of moment. I kept thinking that it was some kind of freak accident. Like, he might have like had like you know how some schools will do the lunch line and like a snack bar line.
Mhm.
I figured, something like he went through the snack bar and like something brushed up to say a peanut butter cookie, or because you hear about like those stories where something with one of their allergies touches something else and they don't realize it touched something else and they eat it and end up going into like shock. Um, so I just kept assuming it was something like that, or we actually have a couple coworkers in my building who have allergies. And I will say this, one coworker's on top of it. She will sit there and say, "Why is that food this color? Why does it smell sweet?" She sits there and she asks these questions. And we'll sit there and go, "Oh, it's pink because it's got strawberry in it." And you'll see her go, "No, thank you for trying to share with me, but no, I won't eat that because I'm allergic to strawberries." And we have another coworker who, at one point, we were talking about bringing in food and sharing it amongst ourselves, and somebody brought in cookies and it was crunchy, and nobody thought about it. Thought about how crunchy these cookies were mixed with like the fruit in it. And this coworker never asked any questions of, "Hey, what's in this food?" And eats one of the cookies, and it turns out it has one of the nuts that she's allergic to. And she ended up having to down some Benadryl in order to make it through the day. But I mean, I kind of figured it was a moment like that where, something brushed up against something, or he just didn't think to ask what was in the cookie or the cake or whatever he got.
Yeah, I didn't see any of that coming as well, and I didn't think that it was any of the kids either that was in detention with him. And I don't know. I thought maybe that he did get murdered, and I was trying to
That's
figure out how did they get it in there. And that was, you know, I
like
did
that
think that
somebody
he did.
planted peanut butter or something in his
Right.
bottle.
Yeah, I did because especially when he said where somebody took my water bottle, my water bottle is missing. And I didn't think it was like a freak accident. I did think that somebody did try to kill him, especially after the synopsis of it. So that's why I was thinking going into it that somebody did try to kill him.
And here's the thing, even though he's going, "Somebody took my water bottle," I'm like, I kept sitting there thinking, yeah, somebody could have taken your water bottle, but I'm like, that could have come at lunchtime. That could have, um, yeah, like it never crossed my mind that, um, somebody, that is a, it never crossed my mind that he had a buddy helping him, that there's somebody else going, hey, if you do X, Y, and Z. I mean, I'm not, looking back, I'm not surprised because it's like, okay, that's kind of like the perfect way to, I guess, mess with people.
That's
You
like
would guess.
Saw. That's what it reminds me of too.
I never watched the Saw movies, but I'm not into horror movies. But I mean, I turn into my father when I start watching horror. It's bad. I sit there and go, oh, of course the black chick dies first. Of course the blonde cheerleader tripped right there and got hacked up. Yes, yes. Yeah, like, and I sit there. I have a friend down here who one of his favorite stories I tell, and he's like, every time like I start to talk about horror movies, he's like, gather around, friends. She's gonna tell us about the movie Devil. I'm like, okay, guess we're gonna repeat that story. But I mean, just who I become during horror movies is awful because I hate because I can't suspend my disbelief during it. It's horrible.
But it does because in it Saw, even though he's dead and he's still got accomplices and the legacy is still going on, and you know, but yeah, I didn't think that he had an accomplice. I just thought, they're just trying to figure out who did it until those posts came up about being threatened to be published. Well, after because those posts got sent to the police station. And I'm like, okay, well, there's somebody else that's doing this. Got to figure out who. But none of the characters even made me suspect them. Even the side characters, I didn't.
Yeah, no,
I didn't think about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where it was. I guess the mystery was well written enough that you're not suspecting who you should be suspecting. On the flip side of that, they tried to pair it with, John Hughes essentially. And John Hughes is these happy, light, fun things. And it made the mystery less compelling for me, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, yeah, it's unfortunate. But and also because Jay was the one that was the accomplice, and he actually Simon blackmailed him into doing it. Anyway, it's like Simon was the ring. He thoroughly
He
planned
was
this out.
Jigsaw.
He planned all of this out. Like he knew exactly what he was doing, how he wanted it done, and when he wanted it done. And he just he's smarter than what he gave himself credit for.
Or maybe smarter than what everybody else gave him credit for.
Yeah.
Because I think everybody gave him credit for essentially being. Oh, I'm trying to think of a good phrase for this. Everybody gave him credit for essentially being acidic. Not having brains, not being athletic, not being a good person on any level, but for being this acidic little weaselly person who basically attempted to destroy high school for everybody. I'm not saying high school's a honky-dory peachy time. There are a lot of us that just thought it was a shit show. Mine probably was not a shit show. It wasn't fun. But got through it. And I mean, that's essentially what you have to do with high school. I wouldn't go back. I'd probably go back to college because college was fantastic. But yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know. Like I said, I really, really enjoyed reading it. And I felt like the mystery was written very well. And I felt the whole thing was really good. And I hardly read mysteries. I mostly watch them. I prefer to watch them. But
I watch mysteries and I tend to read mysteries. It's hilarious to listen to one of my coworkers, the page in my building, and my brother and my sister try to tell me what exactly I read because like I read mysteries. I try to read a mix of mysteries. I read biography, history, historical fiction. To listen to my coworker talk, I read only gay stuff because I run a gay book club. So I only read gay stuff and children's books. And I will admit to reading the children's books and the gay stuff. But I like the pictures in the children's books and they're fun. And my brothers and sister will tell me that I read British mysteries, talk about a subgenre, and British historical fiction, which we're going into like subgenre of a subgenre there, and gay stuff. Like at least the gay stuff's consistent, guys.
Now, mine is, of course, a lot of you guys know fantasy, which I love to read, but fantasy and paranormal thingies, urban fantasy. But I hardly ever gravitate towards a mystery, and I think out of all the books this year, is this our first mystery?
Yeah, I think this is our first mystery, at least this year. Last year we read a couple mystery thriller combos with the Final Girls and the girl in 6E.
Yeah, but this one is probably my favorite one from this year.
You
And
know, in terms of favorite book for this year, I would probably go with the Amish novellas, in part because it had been so long since I read them, and they were so different from everything else we had read for this group. So it was nice just to kind of take a left turn. In terms of favorite mystery, it's probably The Girl in 6E because that one was, that one I read in a read strong. Like it literally, I had a day where we were reading for the library, and I literally just read the book for this, and like it held my attention. I literally was going around the room to coworkers going, "Hey, you like thrillers, right? Read this book. Hey, you like sexy time books, right? Read this book."
it had all that in there.
All of that. So I went up to like 5 different people, like, "Hey," they're like, "Put the book down. None of us want to read it right now." Like, fine, guys, fine.
But yeah, it's I don't know. I need to pick up more mysteries. Um, like I said, it's very very seldom when I do pick them up, and most of the time they are adult ones because I read a girl in 6E, not girl in 6E, girl on a train, and a couple next door, and maybe just a few handful more. But I hardly ever gravitate towards YA mysteries. But this one was really good. I really liked this book for me because I read it, of course, today. I read it all in one day, and I feel like it's still with me, and that's a good thing when you read a book, and it's still with you well after you finish reading it. I feel like I was with them with the characters all day. Like I'm trying to figure out, okay, who killed him? I'm sitting in detention with y'all. Who did this?
Like,
But
what the hell, guys?
like, what's going on? And
I will
that's
say
like that's a good thing though. Like you read a story and it just stays with you. And I finished reading, and I was like, okay,
want to go back to
okay.
detention. The funny thing, I will say this: there are two comments I want to make. The first of it, this is probably it's one of the few books that we've read in a while that are not part of a series. So I know every so often we end up reading so many series in Java and the Librarians um, that I always end up whenever I suggest a book anymore. I'm like, what is not part of a series? So I'm not making people rush through everything. The second thing is Erica's brother and I are also on friendly terms. He's actually, I want to say he's younger than my little brother. Actually, you're the same age as my little brother. But so he used to work with us at the library. He was somebody that floated between the branches for different things. And their mom used to tell her brother and I that we were in pre-K 3. And so now that he's all grown up with a kid of his own, I got left in pre-K 3 by myself. And their mom will look at me every so often and be like, you're still in pre-K 3. You know, CJ's grown. He's out there. I'm like, stop lying to me. I know he's in the classroom across the hall. We wave at each other through the windows. That's kind of how I feel like this group is now. Just classroom
Oh,
across the hall, trying to go back to pre-K 3 together.
yeah, because they all knew each other at some point. You know, they and Jake and Simon were best friends in middle school, in what, elementary?
It's funny how those elementary friendships like never last. Well, I say
Yeah, they
never.
were.
Like my top tier best friend. I have a couple best friends that are like, you guys are my go tos for whatever. But the one that's like the number one best friend, um, I know her kids. Like her kids, like whenever I go up to Ohio, like the oldest one yells at me across parking lots now. And I'm like, that's cool. You've clearly learned from me. But I've known this kid, like I've known her since 6th grade, halfway through 5th grade, right in there. Like we've been friends for God since about 2000, so it's been like 18 years. So she's like the only person that I still talk to like constantly from that time frame.
Yeah, the best friend I had in elementary, we're still friends, but we're not like, you know, like best friends anymore. And it's just simple from growing up. You know, you
Yeah.
grow up
I
and
mean,
you
I've still
go
got
apart.
friends from those days that I talk to every so often. Like I've got a couple people that I will hit up. I've got a friend from college that's still a really good friend. I've got actually a couple people that are one of my really good friends. I've known her since I was in the 7th grade, but she was in college and taking classes when my dad still taught. And she and I still talk. And I actually inherited all of her brothers from her as friends. And she's the oldest in the family. So I'm really tight with her and I'm really tight with the baby. And so, and I've been friends with them for like 15 years at this point, to the point that now that all the brothers are on like second wives and stuff, I've outlasted some of the marriages in this family. And you know, we've had talks where I'm like, I will trade you my brother for your brother. And she goes, except your brother is the age of my oldest son. I'm like, and if I trade one of my brother for one of yours, I've got to deal with all their crazy exes. Um, but you know, I've outlasted marriages and I've seen their kids grow up. Like the oldest son of the one of the brothers, I knew him when he was like 5. And he's 20 now with a kid of his own. And I'm like, oh Jesus, I'm not ready for this 5-year-old to have a child. Um, but yeah, I'm also sit there, I'm like, look, at this point, your girlfriends, your wives all know who I am. They all know I talk to you guys and I know what's going on in your lives. And we all know that none of us are interested in each other. If they have an issue, I will call them out and be like, no, bitch, I've known them for 15 years. I would have tried something already, or they would have.
Yeah. Well, I don't really have anything else about the book.
Yeah, and sorry for that little tirade. Sorry.
It's cool. I don't really have anything else about the books that I wanted. I think I said everything that I wanted to talk about. I hate that you didn't like it.
It happens, and the funny thing is, I've already been on like Facebook, and I've seen that after our posting for today, and be like, yeah, we're doing this show. At least one of our coworkers was like, oh my god, I looked this up. It looks great. I'm putting it on hold right now.
I hope she doesn't read reviews or comments.
Well, and what I did was I responded with, let's see here, Ericka loved it. I won't say anything beyond that.
Good.
Because I'm like, God, I can't. I'm like, either she's gonna love it or she's gonna hate it, but I can't. Like, it's not gonna be my fault either way.
Yeah, and
I'm gonna blame it on you if she loves it.
I did read somewhere where it says this is a book that you either love or you don't love. It's not
Yeah,
an in
I
between
could.
because of the issues that's going on in it.
Yeah, I I will. I do have to give it credit in that it very seriously discusses things that should be discussed. I mean, that seems to be a big thing in right now in teen literature is going over the LGBT community, which I'm not complaining about. They always need representation. And they're talking about mental health a lot, which again is something that needs to be discussed. I mean, I know we a lot of times only we end up discussing mental health a lot in Java and the librarians because of the books we read. I talk about it. I end up having discussions about it in my other book club about every 3 months because of something we've read. And I mean, there was one point where we read a book about AIDS in my other book club. And I literally came to that night with, here's the suicide prevention hotline number. Here is the phone number. Here are phone numbers to 2 reputable therapists in town. And here are the phone numbers for places to get tested. So I will leave all this in the middle of the table because I'm not going to force it down your throat if you don't think you need it or if you don't know anybody that needs it. But should you need any of this information, here it is. Should you know somebody that needs it, here it is. If you take it, I'm not going to judge you. I'm not going to necessarily think you need it because I don't know. You might know somebody, but because like if we're talking about AIDS is huge. So I felt like I needed to bring all that stuff to that group. With how often we've mentioned mental health stuff, I felt like I needed to finally mention the Suicide Prevention Month and the number. Because it needs to happen. But how often does this conversation happen because a celebrity died? Like you see it circulate all the time on Facebook. Like Anthony Bourdain and Kate Spade died in April, May. And everybody's like, oh my God. I'm sitting there posting the number, the suicide prevention number. I'm like, call this. If you feel like you're downtrodden, I'm like, yes, we all say talk to somebody. But realistically, it's hard. It's hard to come to somebody and talk to them about stuff. Like one of my really good friends recently said, I don't want to talk to you about my stuff sometimes because I know you've got a lot going on in your life. I'm like, shit, come to me. I'm like, I don't care what's going on in my life. If something's big, good or bad, I'm here. I mean, granted, we were having a fun conversation at that time and just having back and forth and I mentioned something and he responded with that. I'm like, no. I'm like, because you said that now and I know nothing's going on, it's fine. But I need you to know I'm here. But I mean, even with those conversations, it's hard to go to somebody. So
I have a good friend that's suffering from depression and suicidal thoughts, and I try to talk. He doesn't live here, but I try to talk to him every day. I try to keep that line of communication open. Like he'll text me sometimes or call me, and a lot of times I don't know what to say,
yeah,
but I do the best that I can, because I don't want him to shut me off because I don't want him to think,
yeah,
well, she doesn't understand. I don't want to talk
yeah,
to her about it, or and it's okay not to have all the answers. Just sometimes just need somebody to
yeah.
talk to. Most of the time they'll say is, I know you don't have the answers to this. I know you can't fix this, but I just need somebody to listen.
Well, and here's the thing. My friend that said that doesn't have mental health issues. He's got other health issues. But I mean, he said that I'm like, no. I'm like, on the flip side of that, I was like the second person that found out when his second kid, when his wife was pregnant with their second kid. The only reason I was number 2 is because his sister went into her significant other's tattoo shop and they didn't trust her to be quiet long enough to not be like, hey guys, guess what? And so I'm like, look, I'm here for all of it. And I do have a couple friends that have mental health issues, nothing as big as what you just described. But I'm the person that sits there and knowing that they have these things, I will unload all my crap to them. And then as soon as I unload, I will sit there and go, tell me how you feel. You need to, I'm like, that you cannot take on this on as your stuff. It's my stuff, right? Do not get anxiety. Do not feel stressed out. I instantly become that person. So, I mean, if you have that person in your life, great. If not, I'm sorry. Regardless whether you feel like you can go to them or not, find a mental health professional. Call, use the suicide prevention number. See a tarot reader. Do something to help you out. I
Yeah.
mean, the weird thing is, I know I mentioned tarot reading, and I don't necessarily believe in it, but I mean, I've gone to tarot readers with a lack of belief in it to walk out of it going, okay, I might not buy into what they're doing, but some of what they said was stuff I needed to hear, and it changed, and it made me rethink things. So do what you need to do.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. Because, like I said, you never really know what goes through a person's mind, what they go through on a day-to-day basis. So, but yeah, um, we can. You mentioned the next month's book.
Sure. Do you want to give it the shout out, or do you want me to?
Um, the name of the book for next month is Sisters of Heart and Snow, and you said it's an Asian
It's got a little
theme
bit of
to
an
it.
Asian bent to it. Oh, good gravy. Let me look it up. The cover has like, oh god, let me look this up.
And the author's name is Margaret Dillaway. This is an adult fiction.
It is adult fiction. It's Margaret Dillaway, and it's called The Sisters of Heart and Snow. It's, let's see here. Rachel and Drew Snow may be sisters, but their lives have followed completely different paths. Married to a wonderful man and a mother to two strong minded teens, Rachel hasn't returned to her childhood home since being kicked out by their strict father after an act of careless teenage rebellion. Drew, her younger sister, followed her passion for music, but takes side jobs to make ends meet and longs for the stability that has always eluded her. Both sisters recall how close they were, but the distance between them seems more than they can bridge. When their deferential Japanese mother, Hikari, is diagnosed with dementia and gives Rachel the power of attorney, Rachel's domineering father, Killian, becomes enraged. In a rare moment of lucidity, Hikari asks Rachel for a book in her sewing room, and Rachel enlists her sister's help in the search. The book, which tells the tale of real-life female samurai Tomo Gozen, an epic saga of love, loss, and conflict during 12th century Japan, reveals truths about Drew and Rachel's relationship that resonate across centuries, connecting them in ways that turn their differences into assets. So it's American, it's Japanese, it's sisters, it's dealing with. I didn't realize it had a mother in there that gets dementia when I brought this up, so I'm sure this will bring up a couple things for me because my grandmother did have dementia. But it shouldn't be, at least for me, should not be too bad, but just be aware of that. And sounds like from the blurb, the father could be a trigger for people.
Yeah.
So he could either be a trigger or he could be one of those obstacles to overcome.
Sounds good.
Mm-hmm. This is, and I mean, again, it's different from what we've been normally reading. Usually, when I toss out books, I'm trying to, sometimes I don't pay attention to the publication date when I toss out stuff, but a lot of times when I'm tossing out things, I'm trying to find stuff that we aren't normally reading just to be different and to kind of expand our genres because that's what we were talking about when we started this group was expanding genres and being different and learning new things.
Yep, that's what it's all about.
I mean, granted, it's also overcoming fears, which I think is why we keep going back to the fantasy for you because we're like, we're gonna get Ericka through this. We're gonna get her through
Yeah,
this.
there's just been so many good ones that's coming out and so many that I've been wanting to read. And so, like, when you ask for suggestions, I just look at my TBR and just throw them out. I have actually most of the books I'm reading for the month of August are all urban fantasy except for
So for this,
that one that we're reading and Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue. I'll be reading that.
you will
But
love
all
it.
the rest of them are urban fantasy.
I think you're gonna love Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue.
And so I was told to listen to it because I have it from Cloud Library. I have the ebook and the audio. But the guy who
Okay.
plays Tom Riddle in Harry Potter, I think it's in the second one, he narrates, I believe.
Okay.
So
That
yeah.
could be an interesting listen. I read it. I tend to be more of a reader than a listener. And I mean, it was the best way I can describe it is a gay a fun gay road trip book set in 1800s Europe when they still were doing the grand tours.
Yeah, I can't
Oh,
wait
and
to
there are
read it.
pirates in it.
Pirates.
There are pirates. I'm not going to tell you when or where, but there are
Okay.
pirates in it.
Yeah, I can't wait to read it.
Like
But
that was
I'll
just like a
be
fun surprise I randomly found in that book. I was like, damn.
cool. Oh, you have anything to add to this or
I do not, but we will toss that list to you guys soon, either on the buddy read or in the um link for this.
yeah? And I'm pretty sure our show will be the same date next month, the last Tuesday of the month at 6:30.
Usually, if we change it up, it's because one or both of us have stuff going on. Like it gets messed up in November just because of the holiday stuff and us traveling for holiday stuff. We don't do it in December. Depending on when Easter falls, it will mess things up. Yeah, I mean it's usually holidays that mess it up. Or if one of us has family stuff going on, is yeah.
Yep. Well, that was all that we had for today. Thank you all for joining in and leaving your thoughts and comments and everything that you felt if you read the story. Um, and that's all. We'll see you all next month.
See you next month.
Bye.